you. Aymen is director in the methodology and portfolio research team at Morningstar in Canada. He was associate professor of finance at York University in Toronto and at the University of Quebec in Montreal. He's worked as a portfolio manager at Desjardins Global Asset Management. He holds a PhD in administration from HEC Montréal, an MBA in finance from Laval University, and a bachelor's degree in finance from IHEC Carthage. He has also published several papers on portfolio management and sustainable investing, and will be talking about fintech and responsible investment. Please go ahead, Aymen.
Sure, let me share my screen first. All right, can you see the screen, I guess? Yes?
Yes, we can.
All right, excellent. Backward. All right, thank you. Hello, everyone, and very welcome. I'm very pleased at the same time to be here for presenting this topic about fintech and responsible investment. First of all, before starting and diving into the topic and discussing all the different interesting, really a big thank for the organizing committee for taking the time for organizing this this very interesting session and very interesting event that deals with very interesting timely topic that speaks to everyone, although they are mostly this year focused on fintech and responsible green investment and all these things. But at the same time, I think they are very, very interesting and would be benefit for a large audience. So a big thank also for Sami taking the initiative and organize such an event. And I think that would be, again, very, very helpful. And I hope in the future that we continue to do so. On a more personal note, also a big thank and massive thank for this for sharing the invitation. Of course, my pleasure to participate to the event and bring perhaps some view on this topic and discuss some aspects of it. I attended some of the previous session and they were all very really interesting and they were dealing with this fintech area and responsible investment. So let me then start with what would the presentation would be and what we will talk about in this presentation during this talk and try to perhaps provide some key takeaways and brief messages, things that we can at least have in mind once the presentation is done. So the presentation, as the title mentioned, is mostly about fintech and responsible investment. So I would dive simply and look at a very simple outline. I will start with the definition of fintech, why the rise of fintech, why the fintech is important. Are there any opportunities in fintech? Is there something that we should pursue? And why, generally, we do see all this interest in this area? Why fintech is really becoming a major center of interest for people, and why we all these things. So a lot of questions. I'm not having the pretension to answer all of these questions, of course, but most of this is simply to trigger a debate, to trigger a reflection about these topics. And also perhaps benefit from your feedback and from your different views, and perhaps have a mix of different opinions about these things. The second part is mostly about responsible investing, and I think this is also a timely subject. People are really talking a lot about this responsible investment. What can we make of this responsible investment? Is it profitable? Is it counterproductive? Is it costly? Is it really something that is really doing good? Is it really about forfeiting profits or forfeiting everything else behind just to save the planet? Or is it the same time, saving the planet and saving yourself somehow, people and planet? Or what is it is about? Actually, that's also very, I think, interesting item. And then I try at the end to have a mix of the two, mixing fintech with the responsible investment and see the connection, how actually fintech could support responsible investing and vice versa also. Why and how responsible investing could feed into fintech, how they could provide probably a use case or a framework for all these technologies, all these tools that are coming from fintech. They could be used in responsible investing context, and they find really the ideal network, the ideal framework or the ideal context, and then they could drive it. So this is an overview of what the presentation would be. Gonna be a very straightforward, some basic definitions, basic recall of some of these things. And I want to make it really very straight to the point and not that complex. So first aspect with the financial technology, of course, fintech is derived from the mix of these two words, a very simple and common definition that all of you might know probably. So the new tech that seeks to improve and automate the delivery and use of financial services. Of course, what is interesting in this part and why we got attention to specifically financial technology. Of course, tech companies are everywhere, every sector from oil to utility to consumers, etc. But why would we do have this specificity? Because of probably the financial sector was traditionally dominated by large companies, large banks, large insurance companies, and traditionally also they tend to be, for most of them, not all, of course, they tend to be traditional, and the space for innovation there tends to be quite slow, small, or by stages. Here there's a disruption completely. With the rise of internet, the rise of mobile application, making all this technology accessible to everyone, where you can, in your living room, taking a look at your phone, you can directly, borrow money, you can invest, you can select the investors, you can look at new opportunities. All these things, think of it 30 years, 40 years ago was completely unbelievable, where was a heavily regulated process where you need to access money or present demand to have a loan or something like that. And then there was really tremendously completely different reality. And again, even in developed country, but also in an emerging country. And I think I will also talk a little bit about that, how we can compare the two realities and how the two realities actually complement each other, either in developing countries or in developed market. So that's the thing. This is why to say. So the bottom line here is really to say that yes, there is a specific case, there is a unique case of tech companies working in financial sectors, and this is why we do have this case. Of course, the other effect that is specific, there is a really tremendous growth here. There are a lot of opportunities, a lot of companies, and that are seeking this market, and this is why we are now talking specifically about it. So this is in short what I was introducing. So normally think of it about a quiet environment, what the finance industry would be on some crisis from time to time, but the industry itself is mostly again made of large players. And then we have this disruption of new technology, where some tech companies that are originally maybe not in the financial sector, they are now becoming a player, and they are offering maybe more customized services, more niche services, and they are offered, let's say, more specific products that probably large firms or large banks are not necessarily interested to provide or to offer. So fintech also can apply to any innovation and also people transact business. As I mentioned in the beginning, I think that's also coincide with the internet revolution. I think the mobile internet, smartphone revolution. And also all this makes, this is a mix of factor why we are having this bubbling or this effervescence around fintech. It's really a mix of these different things, but the bottom line is here that this is here. So we need to take it as given, and we need to try to look at opportunities surrounding this financial technology rise. So of course, all what I was saying was possible because of high demand. So people are now more and more comfortable to adopt or to embrace these technologies. And EI, let's say this EI report published in only 2017, probably now it is even getting much higher, that says at least 1/3 of consumer utilize at least 2 or more fintech service. Just to say that how prominent it is becoming in our daily life, where we rely more and more on these technologies, where we look at this again for transfer, payment, etc. All the services that only 30, maybe 40 years ago were something really very, very serious, and were something that really requires a lot of planification, and you have to get an appointment to go to the bank, etc. Of course, I will be also talking about the banks themselves, with the way that they modernize their services. Of course, they themselves offering different fintech apps and services, and they are not necessarily external. But just to say that now there is room for both large but also small players as well. Around a very quick survey of what the fintech is and what kind of services we can have, and although there's no again really very specific definition about the boundaries where what should be part of fintech and what is not, but although we can define, let's say, some general examples, that the first thing is about blockchain. That's a new technology disrupting all the market and connecting perhaps think of it investors and those who are need or willing to finance their project. And also as a mean of payment and a mean of exchange money, someone, I don't know, in one country could send a lot of money or some amount of money to another person just by clicking on two buttons. And also way of research. I think that was also largely discussed in the previous discussion, in the previous presentation. There was also that data is really at the heart of everything in fintech, and it is also a very valuable source in the virtual and the digital economy. And also as a way here, we talk about, cryptocurrency, we talk about digital money, we talk about other things. And here again, there's online banking, just to mention, and in connection to what I was saying previously, that also online bank also themselves now are offering so many services that you can do online, then you don't need to go physically there. And also here as a source of investment, and perhaps the most prominent aspect of it is crowdfunding, where think of a company where again, always taking the same example, where 30 years ago or 40 years ago, you were going to a bank to have a loan. Here, you can have access immediately to a pool of investors willing to invest in your company. And in a sense, this is also somehow increasing efficiency of the market, increasing also the amount of project that would find a financing resource. That also increase also the probability that someone who is in need of money to find the reasonable amount of money to start. So this is really a very good support for the economy. And overall, I don't know, from let's say corporate finance professor, corporate finance perspective, all this is really improving efficiency in the market, reducing information of asymmetry, reducing all these things. All these things are really beneficial toward a better functioning of the connection market. Some really quick examples of who are this company or what this company are. Probably some are very famous when we talk about Google Pay. That's the only account that you have. You can pay everywhere in every store, and even in the bus or something, you can really pay whatever you go. Of course, the way to pay online, PayPal is probably most known, or Alipay, China. But also there are other some banks, different banks, Bank of China, they also provide apps. So these here is just summarizing the top fintech apps by download worldwide for 2018. Let us here perhaps have a short video just to wrap up a little bit the subject and summarize the definition. And after that, I'm going to provide some very few specific examples that I want to discuss a little bit more.
We can't hear the sound. We see the pictures, we see the video, but we can't hear.
ولا فيديو حقه حتى يقرا الساوند من التليفون نتاعو خاطر عمل يسمع فيك هو على كذا هذا ما فيش مشكل c'est très court ça 27 billion هكا اي ما عندهمش اساسي عبيد في فرنسا الفلوس موجوده ما عندهمش افكار. في امريكا خاطر في ايران زاد هكايا، اما في امريكا ما عندهمش نفس الامون تاع عبيد هكا فعلا تكراس. في هنا هكايا زاد مش عليك يعني في الميغراسيون سيلكتيف. Oui, c'est un peu ماهيش فاكتوري، مش تخرج في برشا عباد، برشا عباد ما يسون با جراتويتد راهو. بون على اللي اللي شفتوا على اليوتيوب راهو ما عندي جي ما نعرفش. هما جوستومون لو بوت نتاعو تحب تعرف هذيك سي انيسياتيف دان نوم دافير كبيرة. شوف الصحابي اللي عمل كبيرة. اي اي
Il doit activer le son de son PC.
اي هذيك اش قلت لك انا توا. اي باش نقول يا ربي ديجا في تونس علاش
Aymen,
Yes.
on n'entend pas gérer le son de la vidéo. Est-ce que tu peux activer le son de ton PC ou le partager via Zoom ou...
Ah, il est au maximum, je ne sais pas.
Non, c'est plus peut-être un partage. Non? Si?
Ah, je ne sais pas comment le faire.
تيمز هو تيمز
Non, Zoom, Zoom.
زوم نورمالمون ثم كيك باغ يحط لو سون
If you've ever paid for something with your
C'est mieux comme ça?
it's more than a buzzword.
Yeah.
Est-ce que c'est... Okay. Let me then want to record it all, but half of it.
Yeah, yeah. C'était YouTube.
بلا حاطط ميوت في اليوتيوب.
On n'entend plus rien gérer. Aymen, est-ce que tu peux remettre voilà, c'est pas...
Parfait. Alors, je vais laisser tomber, je pense, la vidéo et on va continuer avec le son live. C'est mieux. OK.
Thanks.
OK. All right. Let's go back to that. OK. J'espère que vous m'entendez, vous me voyez. Mes excuses pour la vidéo. OK. The bottom line of the video was very simple. There are three key messages in the video, although it was very interesting, and you can also visualize that on YouTube. The first thing is really that the tech sector is on the rise. The second key message is really disrupting the financial sector, and it offers a lot of services. The third message, which is really very interesting, is that emerging countries and like Kenya here, a very poor country, could have access to that, and actually could be a shortcut to access some new technologies. It could be a shortcut to access a new market and develop new things. And that's the thing. They say 96% of people in Kenya have access to mobile phone, and they are using fintech. So that's just a big opportunity, and we don't necessarily need in a huge means, technological means to access to that. And also that's also the important part of the fintech is that these companies initially, at least, they don't require as much capital as banks or all these things. So here, of course, the top reason why consumers use fintech, main thing is, of course, that people now are more and more comfortable about outsourcing their services and dealing with non-financial companies to manage their financial issues or their financial portfolio. And also, I think consumers also are comfortable, willing to share their financial data with or other organizations. In line with what I was mentioning in the beginning, I mean, there is a tremendous growth in the fintech market. Of course, this is a rough number. There are different numbers depending on how you categorize and how you account what fintech is, but this is a roughly move from about $3 trillion in 2016 to $31 trillion in 2026. So an increase of tenfold within 10 years, so an average annual growth rate of 27.5%. 6%, which is really very, very good. Another way to look at revisit the subject, of course, initially I provided examples, I provided definition, I provided some views, videos, and etc. But also one way to capture this interest is to see how people are searching this word. I found it interesting to look at Google Trend, a very simple, although not perfect, but a very simple proxy to see how people are interested in that. And we can see here there's really a clear increase. So the story here is very straightforward, where the increase has, taken off starting, I don't know, 2016, 2017, and still continuing to increase. And this is really telling of what the fintech is now in the market. Now looking at this interest regional distribution across the world, and maybe here we have more mixed feeling, where we can see, of course, that most of this search and interest in the fintech is mostly focused in developed countries. Some of it is in Latin America, but here we can see that a lot of effort and a lot of opportunity have to be done, and a lot of energy and investment have to be made, I think, in Africa, and also part of here Middle East and South Asia, where we also need to invest more heavily in the fintech. That does not, again, the proxy that I'm showing here simply shows the interest of people in the fintech, does not necessarily reflect on the level of development and how developed the fintech sector is, but simply how people are interested in the subject, which might be related, but not perfectly, of course. In here, these are the top countries that are where, of course, fintech is researched the most, and of course, these are IT hub, of course, Singapore, Hong Kong, South Korea, and etc. So now moving to the ESG, I will not, of course, skip this video and try to move to the second subject, which is responsible investment, or the second pillar, I would say, of the presentation. The first thing that came to my mind when I was preparing it, of course, I was looking at definitions, looking at things, and that's the thing that triggers most of the discussion. Is there are many words to describe similar things, comparable things. In this is what we call, an alphabet soup, where you eat a lot of these letters in a mixed range, or a mixed ranking. And some people talk, for example, about responsible investment, the corporate social responsibility. They talk about stewardship. They will talk about ethical investing. All these things, of course, we try to provide and to reorganize these definitions. But at the same time, just also to be clear on that there's no clear standard up to now. It might still take time until we get, a standard like the same thing we have for accountings, for example, where we do have really clear balance sheet items, and clear ways to report on these things. Here, I would also mention and talk a little bit about the challenges of reporting and why we are not able to have this perfect framework. Also, one crucial thing here, one main idea that I will also be discussing when it comes to responsible investment, because that's the first thing that comes to the mind of investors. Okay, if I am embracing this responsible investing, is it really worth it? Am I losing performance? Of course, if I need to be responsible, I need to abide by additional costs. I need to bear many other things. Then at the end, down the road, is it really much better, much more efficient, or is it actually value destroying? I'm simply adding cost. I will try to show that there are really very, very good benefits and direct benefits of being socially responsible, and should decouple that from the negative perspective, where we see only as a cost or as a burden for having responsible investment. I can give two examples already. The first one, if you are, I don't know, a company that is relying on water, and you have a water scarcity issue, so you don't have enough water to run your business. If you, of course, withdraw everything within 1 year, this is an unsustainable way, and you're gonna then run out of business in 1 year. Of course, this is a very simple example, but then if you reuse, if you recycle, if you have your treatment, you have treatment of your water, then you can have a more sustainable. So then in this case, it's really more profitable. Other cases also, of course, when we think about the transition toward the net zero emission economy by 2050, there are also a lot of opportunities there. There are a lot of companies that are investing in this renewable energy sector, or these solar energy or other thing, electrical vehicles. And so that could be actually a vector, or could be an opportunity to invest in new area or new sector. Then we call them actually clean tech. So these are companies that are investing in clean energy. So the clean energy itself could be a good way to invest, and a good way to catch, or for companies, let's say, to transition from declining sector and to move to other more perhaps promising sectors, like the one here in clean tech. So perhaps one of the most known, the definition is ESG, of course, is now this word is really put everywhere almost. It's about environmental, social, and governance. When it comes to environmental, of course, everything that deals with climate change, resource, waste, pollution, everything is part of environmental. Next, social, everything that deals with the human being within the company or outside as part of the community. Human rights, modern slavery, child labor, working condition, etc. And then the last pillar, perhaps there's more controversy about it, whether it should be part of this ESG or not, or whether we should split it into corporate governance or governance, etc. So that deals with everything related to the management of the company, how we manage the company, and what are the issues surrounding the management of the company and the organization of the company, especially corruption, executive pay, diversity, political lobbying, and etc. So the principle for responsible investing, I think, defines responsible investing as strategy and practice to incorporate environmental, social, and governance factors in investment decision and active ownership. That's the definition, and I think it speaks. It's very, very clear. Now was going to say the $1 million question, but now it's in terms of $1 trillion, is why we invest responsibly, why this is critical, and why this is important. I think the first thing is, as I explained it in the beginning, is about materiality. So materiality is really the fact that, of course, if you face a risk of climate change, of physical risk or transition risk, or if you face any water risk, then of course in one point in time, this physical risk or this climate change related risk will translate into a financial cost. And so you need to manage that risk, be it as a bank, be it as a company, or in any kind of environment. You need to take into account that something that was at the very beginning not financially assessed and not financially related could become or could translate into a financial risk and financial cost base. And this is the first thing that we call also double materiality, where it is material from an ESG viewpoint, but it is also material from a financial viewpoint. And the second thing also, I think there is a client demand. So as I mentioned in the beginning, those deadlines that we were talking about, 2030 or 2050, where we need to look at the increase in temperature, increase in global warming. We need to catch up on that. We need also to adapt policies starting from now. All these deadlines that seem in one point in time very far are all of a sudden, I think, getting closer and closer, and we need to start working on that now if we need to be aware or to contribute to a more sustainable world. And that's then translate into growing demand from clients, from people, for greater transparency about their money is invested. The third part is, of course, regulation. And this part is not really new. Of course, even in the past, from the 70s, 60s, you have more regulation about the environment, about the way you treat your employees, the way also you manage your business. And then, of course, that's also the costly part. So this is why companies, I think, in my view, should also embrace ESG, because if you don't, then it has also some costs, because you're going to think of oil company paying fines, or other companies that are dealing with data privacy or cybersecurity risk. There are also costs not to follow that. Similar to what I was presenting for fintech, assets under management that are following responsible investment according to the principle of responsible investment is tremendously on the rise. So all people or all asset managers are transitioning from what we call conventional investing toward a responsible investment. So they are all embracing this new wave, and they are incorporating to some degrees into different ways. I will show some ways how we can be more socially responsible, but they are all, let's say, at least this is what the figure mentioned, is really something that is responding to high demand for clients. Same thing as I did again, try to make the parallel between the fintech and responsible investing, how this translates into search interest, how people are interested and they're really searching this word, ESG. It seems, yes, so people are really paying more and more a lot of attention to that. It is really interesting that you see people looking at that. Of course, this might translate into more ESG policies, or maybe more companies working, or more companies, including this. We can speculate on that, but what we can see here is really that worldwide, again, there is really a surge and interest surrounding this question. And same thing as we did for the fintech, we also look at that the geographical distribution. It seems somehow similar. So that's we do have a more focus development market on this responsible investing, and perhaps emerging market are a little bit slightly behind that. But this might change, and this is what I will explain later in the last part of the presentation, where I will try to make a connection between what's going on in the developing market versus in emerging markets. Now, a quick word. I won't dive into the details of that and how we can invest responsibly. First, there are two ways where you can invest responsibly. The first way, you can invest in a fund that already includes ESG rules, includes ESG policies. That's the first way. You can also invest in company that is not ESG responsible, or that does not have a high standard of ESG. And what you can do, you can either engage with that company, be an active owner, be an active having an active stewardship, or be a proxy voter. So you can push those companies to adopt ESG risk rating, to adopt ESG risk, let's say, policies, or ESG risk management policies that would improve their level. So these are both ways where you can really have an impact, and at the same time, I think, improve your ESG alignment, if I may say. So here, when it comes to the portfolio, there are different strategies. Simply summarizing, one of it is you can integrate that as a factor. You can integrate that as a strategy or as a signal. So when you construct portfolio, perhaps the most known strategy is about screening. When you need to invest in a portfolio, of course, maybe you have to remove, I don't know, weapons, you have to remove oil, you have to remove some sectors that are deemed not socially responsible. That's the easy way to when we talk about screening, or tobacco, or something that are deemed not socially responsible. Or you can also focus on one theme. For example, you can also focus on solar energy. You can also focus on water. You can also focus on renewable energies. All these things that make you also socially responsible. Although all these this strategy, they do also have some advantages and disadvantages. Some timeline here about the development of all these ESG things. Of course, it has started, let's say, in 1971, almost 50 years ago. And then, of course, there are different milestones. Perhaps the most important ones are that we are seeing more and more new agreements, international agreements, and to define and embrace socially responsible investing. The second thing is more indexes. Also, we know the stock market indexes, conventional index. No, more and more we are seeing these socially responsible indexes. That's the second thing. And also, so more standards like this one, for example, the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, where they mostly speak to countries and how we can achieve these goals, and what are the ESG goals, but at the country level, and that would include sustainability and all. That's very large, a very broad concept. So that speaks to the individual, but also to the planet, but also to countries. So there are different layers how we can view responsible investment. Here, just a brief overview about these very famous sustainable development goals, where they go from 1 to 17, and they are quite broad and quite large, to be frank. So they aim to fight poverty, hunger, provide good health, well-being, education, quality, etc. But also the good part now that some companies that some companies are also working on how they can contribute to that. So it's not only a question of countries, but it's also part of companies' agenda or people agenda in general. Now another important point, and this is also starts to link in the fintech part of the data part to this part of the responsible investing is the data. So of course, people should report on this data, should report on this ESG data. That's the first thing. So we need companies to report on that. And after that, you need a software, of course, to collect all this information and to structure this information. And once you have that information structured, it needs to be verified and audited. This is where you have audit. And somewhere between here, you would have the framework and standard, because that's now what is missing here in all this environment is really a clear framework. Again, I would make the parallel with the accounting industry, where you have really clear guidance, you have clear frameworks, and you have rules to follow. Here, we don't have that yet for now. And this is why many companies are not reporting, because they say, okay, I want to report, but I don't know what to report and how to report. But that's at the same time, that's the thing. If they don't report, we don't have data, and we cannot say what to report on, and we cannot also provide clear guidance. So that's the thing, is the chicken or the egg, who is coming first, and this is where we stand. But probably over time, things will evolve. But now, from a data perspective, and perhaps for company data providers or for companies willing to also work in this part of the responsible investment, is also to work with data. You can collect data on companies, on ESG performance, and etc. And then try to either create analytics platforms, or try to sell this data, or to make some end users benefiting this data and using this data, of course, to construct portfolio, to reinvest, or maybe for their own use, etc. So that also has some value, of course. And at the end, also maybe regulators, we also look at this data, of course, think of the CO2 emissions, the GHG emission, greenhouse gas emission. They also will be scrutinizing, because you need to follow one budget or cap. You don't need to go beyond that cap. So this is a framework, a general overview about the challenges of reporting on ESG and reporting on this emission, could be emission or any ESG related information. Here also, there's a lot of confusion of what is a standard, what is a framework, and what is a data provider. That's I try to summarize that a little bit. ESG standards are simply, things that are here very let's say detailed. They offer more guidance on many things. Frameworks are probably mostly general things, general concepts that people would look at, or they provide general guidance, but nothing really detailed. And also at the same time, we have these companies, Moody's, MSCI, Sustainalytics, and others, or S&P. They do offer ratings. So their role is really to look at companies, and exactly as some of these companies do assess the credit rating. Here, they will assess the ESG rating. They would tell you, bottom line here, they would tell you if the company is more socially or less socially responsible, and this is their role. So this is the thing here. So we have really different layers, and they do have different roles in within this ESG thing. Now the last part of the presentation, I think, is try to link a little bit and find some connection between the responsible investing and fintech. So on the one hand, we have this responsible investing. So what this responsible investing needs, it needs, of course, technology. It needs data, talking a lot about that. It needs also money, capital, and it needs cost reduction. Fortunately, the good part is that the fintech could provide is really a set of tools. Think of many companies, many things. They could provide all of these. This is the complementary part. And also fintech people, what they are looking for, they do have the tools, they have technology. What they are looking for is simply a use case, a framework, a general thing where I can use, where I can, put all this data into practice. And this is the part where it starts to be interesting. And this is, I think, the complementary part where fintech could really support and be a driver for responsible investment. It could be, again, an opportunity of growth instead of only seeing as a drawback or perceive it as a cost. Here, what I try to do, I try to look at, responsible investing versus fintech. Where do people are mostly interested in responsible investing? This is the blue part, and the red part where people are looking at financial technology more than the responsible investing. So here, unsurprisingly, we found that in North America, in Western Europe, in part of Australia, so let's say roughly speaking, the most developed country, although not perfectly, are mostly interested in responsible investment. The rest of the world, the emerging countries, are mostly interested in fintech. And this is to say that probably fintech is the one step before people start to look at responsible investing, or maybe fintech could be the one that is really feeding the responsible investing. I don't know. I'm looking at that from a perspective from academia. I see maybe a potential here for a research idea, but that's not, we can't over speculate on that. But just to tell, I found that really interesting that most of the emerging countries has a lot of interest in the fintech, and the developed countries do have more interest in ESG. Now, the last part, simply collecting here, gathering some different views that show that sustainable investing in fintech are going hand in hand. So this is here Price Waterhouse report. They say this is a necessary marriage, and here that's the same thing for Monetary Authority of Singapore, saying this is a foundational infrastructure for data is needed to achieve sustainable finance. Also, I talked about the channels, how fintech could support responsible investment, but how they can do that. But offering a green finance, reducing cost and information asymmetry, promoting efficiency, valuing nature. As I said, all of a sudden, things that are physical, they don't have a monetary value because they do have an impact on the company. Then you are likely to attribute or to provide a price for that. And this is the role of insurance company, but also more generally of the financial sector, and then also providing practical, sustainable lifestyles. They do offer other things, other examples. I didn't talk much. I think the other presentation already covered that, like blockchain, decentralized innovation, those kind of things. And in short, I think the fintech could be really a driving force, I think, for sustainable investment. They could redirect financing towards more environmentally efficient users. And also explained that it was also a source of risk analysis and reduce the cost of capital and align portfolios and etc. So this is it for the presentation. I hope that you had a great time, and I'm happy to take some questions. Could be in French or in English. And thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Aymen. Any questions?
We'll begin. Thank you, Aymen, for this valuable talk. I have a question, general question about sustainable transformation and digital transformation. According to Accenture, companies that integrate digital and sustainable transformations into their operations and value chains are 2.5 times more likely to be among tomorrow's top performers than those that do not. What do you think?
No, that's, I think, a very, very good example. Definitely, this is a very good point. And this is the thing, you need to bet on the future. You should not go into the past. And I think the automotive or automakers industry is a good example of that, where you have Tesla heavily investing in, in renewable energy, electrical vehicle, and you have the rest still continuing with what we call these stranded assets that in one point in time, they will see their value decreasing because they're still relying on oil, still relying on gas. Of course, this may continue for a while, may continue for some years. But of course, if we look at the future, 20, 30 years from now, it's going to be very difficult to compete. Now, this is the thing. The earlier you jump into this train, into this innovation, into this part, and you will have more expertise, you will be more advanced. And I think that's key for companies. And this is the thing, I think that was one of my key messages. Don't see responsible investment or clean tech as a burden. We see it as an opportunity. We see it as an area where we need to invest heavily to collect information. Think about solar energy. I don't know, in different part of the world, it's really getting tremendous attention. And a lot of these examples, I think, are there. So that's very, very good example actually that you provide. That's a very sounding number, yeah.
Thanks, Aymen.
Oh, well, no.
Any question?
Aymen, thank you very much for your presentation. Do you speak French? Can speak
Oui,
French?
oui, je peux parler en français. I can take,
Vous êtes tunisienne?
Ok,
oui, thank you. Thank you for your presentation. En fait, dans le cadre de votre discussion et de votre présentation, pouvez-vous nous dire un peu la situation en Tunisie? Qu'en est-il de la situation en Tunisie dans le cadre de la problématique que vous venez de traiter? Donc, quel est le contexte? Quels sont les défis, les challenges en votre qualité de spécialiste dans le domaine?
Oui, même s'il faut dire que je ne suis plus vraiment très spécialiste.
Mais you can speak English, no problem. You can speak English.
Ok, quand vous voulez, je peux parler en français aussi.
Merci beaucoup.
C'est vraiment une très bonne question. Il est toujours difficile d'évaluer un pays par rapport à des critères clairs comme ceux des fintech ou la finance verte ou la finance durable, etc. Je pense que c'est une bonne thématique. Encore une fois, je pense que l'exemple que j'avais montré ici, je voulais montrer un point assez important qui est que les pays émergents peuvent profiter de ça. Je pense que c'est une opportunité. Il faut investir dans les nouvelles technologies. Il ne faut pas être réticent. Il ne faut pas voir ce genre de choses simplement réservées aux pays développés. Ah, on a une nomenclature, on a des choses à suivre. Il faut sauvegarder l'environnement, mais en sauvegardant l'environnement, on a vraiment d'autres problèmes. On n'a pas que ça. On a des problèmes.
Un problème économique.
C'est ça,
un problème économique.
Exactement, mais les problèmes économiques intègrent lui aussi, c'était le message, intègre aussi cette composante-là qui peut être une source de développement économique. Pensez au développement encore une fois, de l'énergie solaire. On a une grande capacité éolienne, on a une grande capacité, mais aussi ces compagnies de data, on a beaucoup d'écoles d'ingénieurs, beaucoup de compagnies aussi qui lancent ça. Ils peuvent faire un hub, ils peuvent faire, je pense, c'est un bon secteur qui ne demande pas nécessairement des montants énormes. La majorité des compagnies en Haïti n'ont pas nécessité, la majorité, disons, pas toute, la majorité n'ont pas nécessité de grands. Donc il y a encore, je pense, un bon positionnement et la Tunisie, je pense, peut jouer un rôle assez important dans cela. Elle peut attirer aussi beaucoup d'investissements. J'avais montré aussi dans le graphique pourquoi les petits pays comme relativement petits de taille, disons, comme Singapour, Hong Kong et Taïwan peuvent attirer. La Tunisie peut être aussi un modèle dans ce sens-là pour attirer ces compagnies dans les nouvelles technologies, peut être une bonne plateforme pour cela et peut jouer un rôle. Je pense que ça, c'est les défis qu'on peut avoir. Je pense que c'est ça la perspective et je pense qu'on peut aller dans ce sens.
Il faut peut-être une volonté politique aussi. Hein.
Je ne sais pas, peut-être.
Je pense. Donc, merci beaucoup, M. Aymen.
Merci.
Merci bien. Merci, Aymen. Je pense qu'il n'y a plus de questions. Si? Ah ben. Oui?
Non, si vous.
Oui, bien sûr.
Alors, merci pour la qualité de votre présentation ainsi que les données que vous avez déjà développées sont très intéressantes pour le contexte tunisien même, pour avoir une référence au moins pour évoluer vers, bien sûr, certains indicateurs. Inch'Allah, par exemple, j'ai vu comme le Maroc, vous avez donné déjà l'histogramme, donc ils sont en train d'évoluer au niveau du Fintech. Alors, si je vous pose la question, comment vous voyez les modalités de changement vers le FinTech en Tunisie?
Oui, je pense que c'est une très, très, très bonne question. Je pense qu'on avait dit dans la présentation, il y avait deux éléments. Je pense une simplification des procédures, la création des entreprises et tout ce qui est administratif et tout ce qui est... C'est ça le principe même de FinTech. C'est le principe même de FinTech, c'est de passer d'une finance traditionnelle où il faut 10 000 papiers pour avoir un autre papier qui finalement va servir à d'autres papiers. Après, vous ne savez plus pourquoi vous avez commencé le processus. Il faut simplifier cet aspect-là. Je pense que c'est ça la clé, rendre la création d'entreprises très facile, comme c'est le cas dans ces pays-là. Et ça prend une réforme, je pense, administrative, et qui n'est pas coûteuse nécessairement. Encore une fois, ça ne prend pas beaucoup de moyens, ça prend juste de la gestion. Ça, c'est le premier aspect. Le deuxième aspect, c'est aussi attirer des grandes compagnies pour qu'elles viennent s'installer en Tunisie. Et dans leur sillage, je pense que les gens qui vont travailler dans ces compagnies vont acquérir une expérience et vont eux-mêmes, un autre jour, créer des petites start-up, des petites compagnies et qui vont produire des niches où ils vont produire des produits spécifiques. Parce que ça aussi, le défi, c'est le défi de connaître qu'est-ce qu'on va produire. Et vous sortez de l'université, vous avez beaucoup de connaissances, vous avez beaucoup de bagages théoriques, mais vous n'avez pas qu'est-ce que vous allez faire, qu'est-ce qui est demandé.
Oui.
Tout le monde, c'est la question qu'on se pose, qu'est-ce que je vais produire? Quel type de projet? Ok, je veux faire un projet, tout le monde est d'accord sur le principe, mais c'est ça, les idées viennent en travaillant dans les entreprises, en voyant c'est quoi les besoins, en allant chercher, en étant très, très proche de ces entreprises-là. C'est là qu'on peut, je pense, avoir et faire la transition finalement de l'université vers le monde du travail.
Merci
De rien,
pour
je vous
vous.
remercie. C'est ça.
Fintech et investissement responsable. Voilà, oui, c'est la question.
Merci. Merci pour votre présentation. Aymen, on a suivi avec beaucoup d'intérêt votre présentation. Juste, vous avez cité le rapport PwC et le mariage possible entre le digital et la finance verte. Aujourd'hui, comment vous voyez ce mariage-là et quelles sont les conditions de réussite d'un mariage potentiel entre la finance verte et la finance digitale?
Okay, ça c'est une bonne question. C'est ça, comme tout mariage, je pense, c'est compliqué. Donc il y a des bonnes choses, je pense, et des défis. C'est sûr que maintenant, le contexte économique aussi, la récession qui vient, pousse les gens, comme j'avais dit, pour se concentrer vers les choses qui sont de base, donc l'inflation, l'augmentation des prix, la croissance économique, la relance aussi de la machine de production, etc. Donc il y a des challenges. Mais encore une fois, c'est ça ce que je voulais intégrer, c'est qu'il faut aussi voir la finance non pas comme un luxe, ou la finance durable, ou non pas quelque chose qui est réservé à d'autres pays, mais comme une opportunité, comme n'importe quel secteur. Comme c'était le secteur des hydrocarbures, le secteur du tourisme, du textile dans les années 70, où on avait pris ce virage-là. Le fintech, je pense que ça peut être aussi une bonne opportunité, surtout en Tunisie où on a vraiment d'excellentes écoles d'ingénieurs, d'excellentes écoles en informatique, on a beaucoup de ressources. C'est là où justement on est bien positionné pour aller, je pense, chercher des marchés et collaborer avec beaucoup de firmes. Et je pense que c'est ça. Je pense qu'il y a un challenge. Les deux ont besoin de l'autre, la finance durable et les fintechs. Je pense que les deux peuvent donner. Les fintechs, c'est un ensemble d'outils, un ensemble de ressources technologiques, mais ça a besoin d'un cadre. Dans quel cadre on va utiliser l'intelligence artificielle, dans quel cadre on va utiliser ce big data, dans quel cadre on va utiliser ce machine learning et tout. On a un cadre, ok, dans le sens où on peut produire aussi des données qui vont servir à voir est-ce que les entreprises sont socialement responsables ou non. On peut aussi servir à rendre des services financiers plus accessibles. Aussi dans les parties qui sont rurales, par exemple, c'était l'exemple du Kenya, où on peut rendre la finance plus accessible aux gens. Beaucoup de gens n'ont pas de compte bancaire, donc ça aussi, c'est une réalité. Donc on peut aussi faire des transferts d'argent ou payer sans nécessairement avoir une agence bancaire et des coûts. Donc c'est ça, je pense que c'est le défi, mais ça reste effectivement, il y a beaucoup de challenges. J'avais mis l'accent peut-être un peu plus sur les côtés positifs, mais sans néanmoins cacher aussi les challenges et les obstacles qu'il peut y avoir, effectivement. Merci.
Merci bien.
Merci, c'est moi qui vous remercie.
On termine. Juste une dernière question à Aymen. Comment s'attirer ces fonds d'investissement aujourd'hui ESG? Comment faire? Comment gérer les convaincre, comment gérer les attirer? Est-ce que uniquement en changeant le cadre réglementaire ou faire quoi?
Ça, c'est une très bonne question parce que même ici, les gens, c'est la question qui se pose, comment on fait pour attirer ces clients-là? Est-ce que ces clients-là sont déjà des gens qui sont convaincus, donc ils vont venir quelque soit, ils vont venir investir. Si en Tunisie, on ouvre un fonds qui est socialement responsable, donc on va venir directement, mais je pense qu'il faut offrir un cadre qui est adéquat, des bonnes conditions et encore une fois, une simplification des démarches administratives. Moi, je pense que cela aide, mais aussi une confiance, c'est ça, que comme tout produit financier, c'est pas spécifique à l'ESG. Je pense comme ils investissent dans la bourse en Tunisie, dans les compagnies, dans les différents secteurs, je pense qu'il faut un bon environnement d'affaires. Et ça, je pense que ça reste la base de tout projet pour attirer des investisseurs qui s'attendent bien sûr à des conditions ou à un environnement d'un pays émergent. Mais en même temps, si vous offrez mieux que ça, bien sûr, là, il y aura beaucoup plus de gens qui seront intéressés et un retour sur investissement, bien sûr.
Merci beaucoup, Aymen. Merci pour ce joli talk et merci d'avoir accepté notre invitation, d'avoir participé à notre événement. J'espère vous voir, j'irai, Inch'Allah, un jour en Tunisie.
Avec plaisir, Inch'Allah. Merci
Oui,
beaucoup.
à Paris si tu passes, Aymen.
Avec plaisir aussi.